If you've been following my channel, you may recall that I had a terrain competition with Eric from Dark Matter Workshop a few weeks ago. You can go watch that here if you haven't seen it yet. The stakes are pretty high. The loser had to watch an entire season of Young Sheldon and make a review to prove he watched it. Well, the votes came in, and unbelievably, it was a tie with 222 votes apiece. Eric and I discussed, and we decided that we both have to do the punishment. Now, I was the one who proposed these stakes because I thought it was an amusingly hardcore thing to bet over. To me, this show looked like pure torture. I am not a fan of Big Bang Theory. I found it to be a painful blend of nerd cliches and fan service accentuated by a grating laugh track. But that said, I do understand that Jim Parsons' portrayal of the eccentric Sheldon Cooper was something special. Still, I couldn't for the life of me envision a scenario in which a child actor could capture any of the same magic. Spin-offs and prequels are rarely better than the original, and I thought it was a pretty good bet that I was in for a very rough ride. Well, I was wrong. Let's dive into it. So the first episode starts with young Sheldon in East Texas in the late 80s, immersed in his model train collection. As someone who's been fascinated by miniatures since childhood, this is obviously relatable. We learn that Sheldon is a child genius, and despite being only 9 years old, is about to start high school. His personality is just like Big Bang Theory's Sheldon. He has a distinct lack of social skills, he lacks empathy and humility, and he laces his conversations with his trademark, blunt, observational zingers about people's intellect and appearance. Now, the showrunners have consistently denied that Sheldon has Asperger's syndrome, possibly to avoid being criticized for a stereotypical portrayal of these traits, but he's been widely recognized as having many behaviors consistent with this condition. We're next introduced to Sheldon's family, and at first glance, they are familiar cliches from 1,000 sitcoms and movies before. There's the simple, boorish, bully older brother, the sassy, eye-rolling sister, the doting worrywart mother, and the buffoonish father. And I was priming myself for Sheldon to be misunderstood, bullied, and tormented, but to prevail with his superior intellect, and I was really not looking forward to it. What happened for the rest of the season was not that. Soon we're introduced to Sheldon's grandmother, or Meemaw. Now, Meemaw might be the best character in the show. She's irreverent, quick-witted, and somewhat uncouth. She drinks, she smokes, she gambles, she's widowed, and she's actively dating. She indulges Sheldon's eccentric personality in a patient, loving way, but also challenges him to grow with a few much-needed doses of tough love. The first scene they're in together, she's playing poker with Sheldon, trying to teach him to read her facial expression, and ends up teaching him an important lesson about bluffing and about human emotion. Ultimately, this is what sets apart this show from The Big Bang Theory. This show is, at its core, about a close-knit family coping with a son who's different. Contrary to my expectations, Sheldon's family is protective and supportive of him, and to the extent that they discourage his eccentric interests and habits, it's only to protect him from the risk of being bullied and ostracized. The supporting cast are remarkably likable and relatable. Sheldon's older brother and sister both struggle with feelings of inadequacy from being overshadowed by their genius brother, but they never take it out on Sheldon, apart from a few sarcastic and exasperated remarks. Sheldon's father, who's a football coach and a prototypical Texas good old boy, finds it difficult to relate to his son, but he goes out of his way to find ways to connect with him, even foregoing a fishing trip to take Sheldon 12 hours to Cape Canaveral to watch a shuttle launch. Sheldon's mother is extremely religious and protective of Sheldon, and she has difficulty balancing her coddling maternal instincts with allowing Sheldon to embrace challenges, interests, and opportunities well beyond what a normal 9-year-old would face. All of them are well-intentioned, well-written characters with clear motivations and conflicts. Sheldon himself is surprisingly well portrayed by young actor Ian Armitage, who impressed me with his imitation of the distinctive vocal cadence and mannerisms of adult Sheldon. Narration from Jim Parsons as adult Sheldon provides exposition and context to Sheldon's inner thoughts, which firmly centers the plot around Sheldon while still allowing him to maintain his aloof and enigmatic personality. There's also something pure and sincere about Sheldon as a young boy that makes him more likable than adult Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. It's easier to forgive his faux pas as naive and unintentional, where the adult Sheldon often comes off as cruel and catty. Individual episodes are usually centered around Sheldon overcoming a challenge that he encounters in his life, such as making friends, conquering his phobias, or proving a point to an adult who has doubted his abilities. He usually accomplishes this by studying the problem with a direct, literal, academic approach. His family is understanding of his obsessive need to overcome these challenges and often help him along the way, with his siblings offering much-needed nuggets of common sense, and his parents and Mima sticking up for him with adults who are challenging him, or providing Sheldon with an important lesson that allows him to rethink an issue in a more empathetic way. Bookended by older Sheldon's narrations, each episode has the feeling of a fond childhood reminiscence, and the toxic home life that I was primed to expect was thankfully totally absent. The bullying I was worried about never really materializes either. In one early episode, Sheldon uses his savant-like understanding of statistics to help the high school football team, and he becomes popular as a result. This results in hugs and pats on the head that Sheldon, who abhors human contact and is deeply germophobic, strongly dislikes, but he never gets shoved into a locker or anything. There's only one episode where Sheldon is being directly bullied, and it turns out his tormentor is the 5-year-old girl next door. Sheldon's teachers are constantly vexed by his outbursts and corrections, but they have a grudging respect for his tremendous intellect as well. The show is set in 1989, which, given the popularity of nostalgia-laced shows like Stranger Things, primed me to be beaten over the head with nostalgia and dated pop culture references. But the show is surprisingly restrained in this regard. There are a few moments where popular culture is injected into the story, but it feels pretty natural. In one episode, Sheldon and his friends start playing Dungeons & Dragons. In a moment reminiscent of the satanic panic of the 1980s, Sheldon's mom forbids him from playing and consults her pastor, but this is merely used as a setup for a larger conflict between Sheldon and his mother about his personal autonomy. Like most episodes, by the end the family has reconciled, whatever petty arguments or differences of opinions giving way to the much stronger force of their underlying familial love. And this is what was most surprising to me. This is ultimately a show about family values, and has a lot of moments that are genuinely touching and sweet, without ever really crossing the line and becoming too corny. I even got choked up a few times. For what it is, it's well executed, and it's, dare I say it, a good show. I'm going to give Young Sheldon Season 1 a rating of 8 out of 10. And you know what? I might just watch Season 2. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.